Thank you for the locals who are able to join us today. We know with the holiday tomorrow, some places are off, some aren't. So we have invited some of the local folks onto today's call. In the event they aren't able to make it tomorrow. So for this last part of our discovery session, we're going to be looking at UAT Release 11, Cycle 1. And we're going to be focusing on the first portion of the application, the WHEEL application. Before I jump in and show you the notebook and the screens, I'm going to walk through the UAT guide, and then we'll actually take a look at the tool, a little preview, and then I will send you all on your way to do your UAT homework. We're going to give you from today to February 25th to complete this UAT assignment. That is 12 working days, not including any of the days off for holidays. And we're going to be focusing on the application for this portion of the UAT. To access the UAT environment, we've provided the link here, so you can access it through the link. You will log on with your Okta credentials. If you have any issues logging into your account, please reach out to one of us on the BA team. We have that listed below here. We can help you if you do encounter any issues logging on. We know some folks are still getting used to using the state sign-on portal. So happy to walk through anything if you do run into that. As you are conducting your testing, we want to make sure that you are logging all of your findings in the UAT notebook. So we have it linked here as well. I'm going to show you that notebook and kind of go over the pages before we go into the system. So we will come back to this. When you are logging your entries, make sure you're documenting the information as you're completing your UAT work. We highly encourage this versus like doing all your testing and then coming back and logging things. This just helps to ensure you can grab the right screenshots and you are logging everything you're finding as you are walking through the testing. There's a section in the notebook labeled example reporting issues. So if you do have any questions or need to refer back to the best way to log issues you find, we do have a section in there that goes over that, and I will highlight it when we look at the notebook. We want to make sure that you are consistent and detailed in your findings. And if multiple issues arise in one area, we want you to log each issue separately so we can be sure we're addressing all of the issues that you find. We also ask that you please provide the name of the customer you're using when you're logging your issues, as well as a URL of the page you are on. This helps us better troubleshoot. We can actually go in and look exactly at what you are seeing. Sometimes we can't exactly replicate the issue because we approach it a little bit of a different way than you guys did. So this just allows us to see exactly what's happening so that we can address it with some kind of fix with our developers. Here is a list of the BA team that you can reach out to if you do have any questions on anything any issues you run into. Um, if you run into any issues, whether it's logging in or not being able to move forward to the next step, we ask that you reach out to us right away. The last thing we want is get to the end of the UAT session and hear somebody say, "Oh, well, I didn't do UAT because I wasn't able to get to page 2." We want you to reach out to us right away if that happens so that we can figure out what is going on and get that addressed so that you can complete the entirety of the UAT activity. The expectations for participation in UAT is that we test thoroughly, we're detail oriented. So whenever you're reporting your issues, that you are telling us what happened to get you there and including a screenshot and what you expected to happen. And then as we review your results, we kind of categorize them into 3 areas: bugs, issues, and enhancements. Bugs will be fixed right away. Issues we might have to take back to state and local discovery. Issues is it's not working the way we want it to work, but it's working the way it was intended when it was built. So we might need to redefine some of that business logic or workflow before a fix can be addressed. And then enhancements is it is working and it will work for what we need to do, but we think there's ways we can do it better. Those enhancements we will either identify if they can be fit into the July 1 go live date, or we have a backlog where we're logging things too that we want to circle back to as nice to haves as we continue to enhance the system after go live. And some best practice efforts when you're doing UAT, we want you to think like the end user and be specific and thorough. So as you're going through this, keep in mind, like if a customer is completing an application, what that process might look like for an array of customers. We don't want to just test the one path, the one easy path. We want to hit it from every direction and every angle. So as you're going through and testing, definitely keep that in mind that we're going through it from the user perspective, whether that's going to be the customer doing it or a career planner doing it with a customer. We want to make sure we keep that in mind as we're doing UAT. So those are the overall general guidelines we provide for UAT. I know we have different folks provide or participate in UAT in every session, so I like to cover those. If you guys do have any specific questions on this, you guys can also feel free to reach out to us if you want to chat a little bit about it before going into UAT to make sure you understand what you need to do and what you need to accomplish as part of this. Again, always reach out to this list here, and we're happy to set that up and talk through anything. So for the activity, the overview for completing the application testing, this is where it kind of gets into more guidance around doing the actual UAT assignment. So this section provides an overview of how to access and complete the application during the UAT. There are detailed instructions. They're linked in the Quick Start Guide references throughout the section. So a couple of important system rules we want to make sure are kind of at the forefront of people's minds as they're going into this is that a customer must complete a pre-screening before an application record can be completed. And a customer can only have one pre-screening or application record open at a time. So when you're going in to do the activity, if you can't just go straight to the application without first going through a pre-screening. And if you're going into a customer, if they already have a pre-screening started, you have to continue through that existing pre-screening. We can't start a new one without deleting it out. I'm going to talk about, we have some test data, so you shouldn't have to worry about this too much. But I did want to keep that in mind that those are some system rules that there's no way to circumvent that. And then we also wanted to note that data identified when a customer's profile is created will be pulled into the pre-screening application to help pre-populate responses. This would include things like their date of birth, disability status, other demographic information. So you might be testing as a customer who doesn't have a pre-screen record and see some of the questions already answered because when we created the customer profiles, we answered that yes to a disability or yes, they're a veteran. And so when we look at those questions, they're already answered and it's more of a please confirm this is correct kind of question. So I did want to note that so nobody's thrown off about why some things are marked in a brand new pre-screening or application. And then we also gave some instructions about getting back to a pre-screening or application. If you're doing UAT and you have to step away, you can, close out of it. And when you come back, you'll go into the customer's profile and go to their intake summary section. And then there will be the pre-screening will be listed there as an open item. And you'll be able to click the play icon and get right back into where you left off and keep going through that. And we have more instructions on that I'll show you, but I did want to make sure to note it here that there is a way you can easily get back into it if you do have to step away. And I put a little screenshot here of where you can get back into it if you need to. If you have to leave off, then you can find it listed in the customer profile under intake summary. There will be listed here, and you click the play icon, and you're right back into it. So, there are two different ways you can test the intake process because we're going to have you guys re-walk back through pre-screening. You're going to see some updates since we did pre-screening last time. We had some good UAT feedback that we've got incorporated. And then pre-screening, you can do in 5 to 10 minutes. And then you're going to go to the application, which is about 10 to 15 minutes. And there's two different paths you can go down. You can either go down path A, which is the career planner path. So you will use the IWDS profile entry point to simulate initiating the pre-screening as a career planner. And there's a few different options for how you can engage that. You can use a customer from the UAT notebook. So we have created 60 test customers and listed them in the UAT notebook, and they all have been set up to align with customer personas. So you can pick one of those test customers and then open the persona document and test as one of those customers. You can also search for an existing customer in the customer list. That if you do this route, you do very much need to keep in mind these system rules, because if somebody's already started a pre-screening or something in them, then you have to pick up from an existing pre-screening or delete that pre-screening record. In UAT, we do allow for deleting pre-screening and application records. That will not be the case when we go live into production, but for testing purposes, we have the delete feature active. And then the third option is you can add a new customer yourself. So you can use the add option through the customer list and add a brand new customer and then go into their profile and initiate the pre-screening that way. We have the quick start guide right here linked for accessing the pre-screening as a career planner. And so if you open that up, it will walk you through how you can go through and you can search customers to get into their profile to start the pre-screening process. So we have that instruction document if you would like to go this route. We also have path A, which is a self-service path. So as part of IWDS 2.0, we are building some public-facing pages for job seekers to learn more about WIOA. And if they are interested, they can fill out a form to initiate the intake process on their own. When they fill out that form, they then get an email that invites them to start the pre-screening process. And if they move through the pre-screening and everything looks good, they can then continue to move into the application process through the self-service path. We do not have the public-facing page built yet. But we do have the self-service form stood up in IWDS on a test page. So you can access these instructions. They will navigate you to our test page where you can open up the application pre-screening section and fill out the form and click submit and then be taken into the pre-screening as a customer. So in this scenario, you're completing it as if you were a customer doing it on your own. In this path, if you use an email that ends in @fakemail.com, the system will auto direct you directly into the pre-screening. If you use your real email, then you will get an email with a link to go into the pre-screening. So there's two different ways you can get into that pre-screening. Once you have a pre-screen started with your email, you will be in a list right below this where you can re-access it. It won't let you start a bunch of pre-screens under the same email address, but you can access it in the list below the form if you need to get back to it. Or you can reuse the link that was provided in the email you got. And then after you access the pre-screening, you're going to go through and you're going to complete the pre-screening process. And we do want to remind everybody that the pre-screen uses a dynamic process in which the way you answer questions will trigger the next question set and determine the pages that you see. So every time you complete the pre-screening, it could be a little bit different based on how you answer the questions. There is also a guide for completing the pre-screening that you can walk through when you get to that step. It walks through, gives an overview of the various pages that you're going to complete in the pre-screening process and talks a little bit about the dynamic approach used throughout those pages. And then at the end of the pre-screening, you're going to get a next steps page. So if you're determined potentially eligible, you're going to get a page. If you're a career planner, your page is going to look like this, which it will show you the program track that the system has determined you potentially eligible for and give you the option to include more or remove one because there might be local policy or conversation the career planner has that and makes them need to change this a little bit. And then they can start the application process either with the customer now, continuing to go through that, or they can choose to send a link to complete on their own. So maybe the customer does a pre-screening with the career planner and is ready to move in the application and do that on their own. They can choose to send an email to the customer to finish it up. If they're determined uneligible, or if we're unable to determine eligibility, the career planner will see a message that has none of the boxes checked. This does give the career planner the flexibility if they know they're going to make them eligible under some local policy to check the box and move forward. If they check a box, your message turns into the um, potentially eligible message. If not, we provide a list of resources. For the purposes of testing, we need to make sure that the customers are triggering as potentially eligible because that's the only way you can move forward into the application. Um, and then this section down here is if you're in the self-service path, the text does look a little different because you will not have the career planner guidance because you are completing it as a customer. So it's the same message with the option to start that application. And then if you trigger as potentially not eligible, you're not eligible to move forward with the application at this time. And we encourage them to connect with the local office if they have questions. We have the visit your local office down at the bottom and then provide them some online resources they can look into. So after you complete the pre-screening, you're then going to transition to the application. So I mainly covered this when I had that guide up as we talked through that. We really want to make sure they're triggering as potentially eligible so that we can navigate into the application. And then we also have a guide here that walks through completing the application. So you can use this guide as well as you're walking through the application pages. The application is very similar to the pre-screening in the sense that it uses a dynamic approach so that based on how you answer a question will determine the next question you see. And some pages might not show depending on if you're a career planner or a customer. Same with questions. There are some questions on the application we only make career planner facing. So for example, the social security number. We do ask that, but only when the career planner is viewing the application. We kept that a career planner facing question. That's also true when we're looking at like a dislocation job and trying to determine if it is in demand or low growth job. That is not a question we are going to ask the customer. That is a question that would only show for the career planner. Right now, we're just doing the initial part of the application. There will be a review process of the application as part of eligibility certification, which will incorporate icons into the side panel of the application pages that will flag to the career planner where there's additional questions that need to be answered as part of that review and eligibility certification process. They will complete with the customer. At the end of the application, process, a customer's next step would be to meet with their career planner for eligibility certification. Right now, the application is only going through to a page that is the career planner page. So if you're testing as a customer, you're not going to see this career planner page. If you're testing as a career planner, you may or may not see this career planner page. This page houses specific questions for customers who are not meeting eligibility any other way for youth if they're not low income or if they're not meeting one of the barrier conditions. We have a couple additional questions to see if they want to work to enroll them under the 5% rule. And then for adult and dislocated worker, if we have flagged they do not meet any kind of priority, we have them re-verify the potential for priority under basic skills deficient or English language learner, because those questions we incorporate the basic skills screening tool and the basic skill screening tool in the pre-screening, but we did not include if they don't trigger on basic skill screening. The career planner page is kind of where we say, okay, we have not determined that their basic skills deficient, but maybe the career planner has determined that in another way and provides them the questions to see if they meet that. And if they do, more questions will pop up about assessments and stuff. But if the customer already meets priority in another way, it is not something that we need to look into at this point, and the career planner page wouldn't show. So the career planner page is very much the catch-all at the end. If there's no other eligibility options or priority of service options, we will then ask a couple of additional questions on this career planner page that would be specific to the career planner. Right now, this is the last page in the application that we will be looking at in UAT. In development, we are currently working on building out the uploads page. So the next page we're going to see is an uploads page that will allow the customer and the career planner to upload documentation to support eligibility and priority. And then as we move into eligibility certification, we're going to also add in a signature page and then a certify page to streamline the process if they're doing it all in one step with the customer. We'll also have some additional eligibility certification screens to help navigate the certification process as well. But this is the entire question set that we're going to be looking at, and then we'll have some supporting pages as we continue to move into the eligibility certification portion of the application. UAT reminders. The goal is to test the application and ensure we can successfully navigate it and complete the applications to understand and determine eligibility for WIOA Title I adult dislocated worker and youth. We want users to focus on validating system behaviors, workflow transitions, and capturing the data. The priority is how the system behaves. You don't need to focus on your test data. We have a lot of people get really wrapped up into coming up with test data. We've provided personas that you can use so you don't have to worry so much about like coming up with examples. So we encourage you to use those personas. We also really encourage you to use real life customers, but change their PII. Like don't put their full name and date of birth and social security numbers and stuff into the system, but you can look at a customer's application that you have and kind of walk through it while changing that PII to facilitate real world experiences that are happening out there and making sure that we can get those through in the IWDS 2.0 intake process. We also have the link to the persona list. I had it above, and I also wanted to link it here as well. And then some general navigation and information that I always like to make sure we talk about and remind people. So the side panel on the this should say pre-screening and application pages highlights the current page you're on, and you can also use that to navigate through the pages. So when I say the side panel, we're talking about the side panel right here. It shows you the various pages, does the same thing for application, and will highlight where you're at so you can easily navigate through using those or using the buttons as well. It is a responsive questions. Questions change based on your response, and they may appear based on how you answer, and unnecessary questions are not going to appear. They will be skipped, creating this dynamic and intuitive experience. So for example, we have a question, are you a US citizen? If I say yes to that, I am not going to see the question, are you authorized to work in the United States? But if I were to say no to the US citizen question, then I might see a follow-up question to see if I'm meeting that authorized to work question. We do that in a lot of places. The last thing I like to talk about is the customer-centered design. So the pre-screening and the application use a customer-centered, asset-based design with plain language written at a 5th to 6th grade reading level to ensure clarity and accessibility for all of our users. So as you are going through this, that is the approach that we have taken. And as you're looking, if you have any potential feedback to provide, we do ask that you keep that in mind, that we really want the system to be customer-centered and asset-based and really get at assets and not deficits, and then keep it in a reading level in which all of our users would be able to understand what we're trying to ask of them throughout this intake process. And then we just kind of put a bullet here to kind of identify what do we mean when we say customer-centered. It focuses on clarity, respect, and the ease of understanding. And then asset-based is highlighting the strengths and opportunities rather than the deficits. So as you're going through the intake process, we really want to keep that vision in mind of a customer-centered design system that focuses on putting our customer service needs first, while also knowing there's other things that we need to capture for reporting. We want to make sure we're serving them as at the forefront of what we're doing in this system. So I'm gonna go to the notebook next. Does anybody have any questions before I jump in and show you the notebook and then kind of walk through the system? Give me 1 second. I'm going to blow my nose, and then we will go into the note. All right, so we are going to be working in Release 11 in the applications, and I have lots of pages here. The first one is the check-in, the participant check-in. So we have a section for our state group, a section for our trainers, our core local, and our extended local group. And then any additional testers from LWIA or state, please add your names here. We've had some additional testers in the past, so I just brought those folks over and listed them here as well. As you complete UAT or come in to do UAT, when you start it, not necessarily when you complete it, but when you come in to start, we want you to put the date you tested. Say I come in today, I would put 2/11. Say I come in again tomorrow, I'm going to update it with 2/12. So we want to make sure we can track who all is coming in and testing and when things were tested at. The next section is test customers. So we have a list of all the test customers we've created in UAT. You can use the customers below to complete your testing. System rules will only allow customers to have one active pre-screening and application at a time. Each of the test customers aligns with a persona that provides additional information on the customer to help complete that process. So this document is linked, and it is also on the transition webpage. It provides, so you are going to claim a customer in the table, and then you can come in and find them in here, and it provides you an overview of the customers and a bunch of other information. These were used for pre-screening. We built them out even more with data for applications. So you can use these personas as needed. You want to make sure that you put your name in who you claim so that we can hold true to that only one active pre-screening or application at a time. So by putting your name here, everybody will know Victor's in use and they can move on to pick the next person. We also identified the program tracks identified in the personas. So each of the personas is obviously geared towards testing a program track. A lot of these people, even though we have dislocated worker, they're also going to trigger as eligible for adult, which is perfect. Some of them might not if they're youth who are too young to trigger that adult track. They may only trigger in just youth. For these, we put the primary program tracks we were going down. So we didn't put like dislocated worker and adult or out of school youth and adult. But for a majority of them, the adult program is also going to trigger as a potential eligible application they can move forward with. And then I also want to point out we have this example reporting examples listed on this page here. This just gives an example of, a issue you find, putting it in, including a screenshot. And then I put under here what makes it a good comment. So we kind of talk about like, why is this good? We have the name of the person who reported it in case there's questions. So if you want to better understand why we need this information or how we're using this just explains what makes a good comment. So jumping back up to release 11, these are really 2 pages to kind of help facilitate the UAT, and then we get into the pages where you're going to list anything you find. So pre-screen findings. I don't have all the pre-screening page built out. We've already put pre-screening through several UATs. I don't expect that we find much, if anything, but if you do, this is a space where you can note any UAT bugs, so things that aren't working. And then we have all the application pages. So this is done the same way as we've done a lot of the other paged approaches. We have a page for each of the pages of the application. So the introduction page, the profile page, the contacts page. This just helps us keep everything a little more focused. So we're not jumping back and forth all over the place, but as we're looking at the introduction page, we can see everything that has been noted on it. So as you're testing through the application, we ask that you do put your comments in the appropriate section based on whatever page you're working in. So that is the notebook. Does anybody have any questions on the notebook before I jump into the UAT site to walk through an example? All right. So there's two paths to getting in here. I'm going to show you the self-service one first. We can come in management tools, testing pages. This is all in the quick start guide, so don't feel like you have to memorize all this. You can definitely just open up that guide and it will walk you through all this with visuals. Um, then you're going to go to the application pre-screening section, and then you can fill this out and click test. And it will, if you put in an email as like test@fakemail.com, when you click next, it's just going to automatically take you into the pre-screening. We've told it that if it has @fakemail.com, don't try to send an email, just take them directly in. If you put in a real email, it will take you directly in, or I'm sorry, it will send you an email with a link that will take you into the pre-screening. If you use the free screen, or I'm sorry, the self-service option, your record will show up down here it'll display as self, and you'll be able to easily come in and click the link icon to grab a link to get back into your pre-screening, and the event you start it and you step away and need to come back to it later. And then again, as a reminder, when you come through this self-service route, you are testing it as a customer. So there will be questions in the application you do not see because you are a customer, and we do have a few questions that are career planner facing only. Additionally, a lot of the text on the introduction page, you're not going to see there's like some career planner guidance. A customer would not see that kind of information. The second route is if we come to our customers page, you can look for a customer. So we have all of our test customers are listed in here. So here's good old Victor Hayes. They're all listed in there. You will find, I can't remember what I called here it is. You will find your customer and you're going to click on their name, and it's going to bring you into their customer profile. I will note again, we're going to update this UI right here. We have some cards slated for that this sprint and next sprint to get this updated, but the instructions will still walk you through using this UI. We are going to go with a little bit of a cleaner UI instead of a table, but for right now, that's what we have. So there's no pre-screening, so we're going to click to start the intake process. If you're coming in through a customer, like as the career planner path, you want to make sure you're completing it with the customer now. These all have @fakemail.com emails. So if you choose to send the customer a link to complete it on their own, you're not going to get that email because we have fake emails in here. So we want to click complete now with a customer, and you're going to be able to then move in to doing that. If this option is used, obviously when we have real customers in here, this is going to essentially initiate the same process as the self-service. They're going to see everything the same way somebody going through self-service would because they're going to be completing it as a customer. So by selecting complete now with customer, we're triggering the path to complete this as if we are a career planner or intake staff member doing the intake with a customer. So I am now in the pre-screening. I am on the introduction page as Olivia Febtest. There's my email. And then there's some guidance for career planners. I'm not going to walk through read all the text and walk through every questions. I want to show some general navigation and point out a couple things here. We now have the Find Local Help button in place. I did want to note that we have this set up. This is connected to UAT test data. So we do not have like a ton of test data in here. It's not going to actually show you all the LWIA offices. We are working on seeding a lot of that data, but right now it's just test data hooked up into the system. So it's not necessarily that it's broken. It's just that we don't have in entity management and UAT all of the offices in there yet. Then if we jump back to the introduction page, we can move to the next page of the pre-screening. It's going to take us to the getting to know you better page. So a lot of us have seen all this before. We're going to answer some questions around our goals. Do we have specific occupations in mind? And then again, the part of this being dynamic is right now it moves to job preferences next. But if I say I have a job in mind, then it's going to prompt me to pick which job do I have in mind. We did get this, so it is more customer facing. We got rid of like all the codes and all that, and we can just type in a job. It's going to give us that list back so that we can pick that. It allows us to pick up to 3. So we can come in here and pick as at least between 1 and 3 and add those top jobs that we have in mind. Then we're moving down to the situations question. So do they have any job preferences, work experience? So in this customer, when I set up their customer profile, I indicated that they had a disability. So it already has this checked because I've already told the system in a previous step that I had a disability. When you guys look at your personas, when we built them out, we answered the vet and disability questions to align with the persona. So those should be pre-populated for you all as you're like going through this based on a persona that you pick. Transportation, child care, dependent care. These questions will continue to pass through. So I'm just going to say that I'm pregnant. When we move into the application, it's going to know this and some other questions to ask and have some of this pre-answered for us. Then we move to the next page. We have our skill screening tool. So we can come through here. We added some career planner text here from UAT. So that's now showing. We can complete the skill screening. Then we move into general eligibility. This is where we start seeing some additional dynamic approach. So again, there's this, if I say yes, if I say no. Really the only way you're going to get the potentially not eligible page is if you say no to both of these. You'll see a lot of pages got removed because I've now triggered as not eligible. The other way you might see the unable to determine eligibility page is if you are under 18 and you move forward to test with youth. We'll still let you move forward, if you're in the youth age range, but you go through youth and you're not eligible for youth and you're too young for adult, then you would also get the unable to determine eligibility page. So as long as you're not hitting either of those paths, you should be good to move forward into the application. If you're a male, you're going to see the selective service question, a male and in the appropriate age range, you'll see that selective service question. Then because of the age of my customer, I am seeing the questions to determine youth. So it's looking at in school. If I say yes, if I say no, I'm getting the out of school track. So again, very dynamic in how the questions are being asked. Then I get to the review page, review and agree. And then I am getting to the next steps page. I am, for the purposes of UAT testing, I'm going to trigger all 3 so I can take a closer look at the dislocated worker page with you all. And then we're going to go ahead and move forward to complete the application now. So that is the end of the pre-screening, and we're now into the application. So the intro page of the application rebrings in this piece that allows me to edit this. Once I move into the application, these will lock, but this is giving me an opportunity here to make these changes. This is, we did this because a lot of times we might find that customers are going to do pre-screening on their own, but might come in to do application. So when they come in and the career planner starts the application, they're able to start from the intro page. We don't have to jump them, back to the last page of the pre-screen and then into the application. To streamline the process for the career planners coming in, depending on where a customer might come in for support. After the introduction page, we are moving into the profile. So you can see here some of this data is pre-populated based on what I had put in on the customer record. And then I answer more questions. The marital status is going to help determine, like if I'll see some additional questions, like we're not going to ask qualified spouse questions. if somebody is single. So there are some things in here we might not see right off the bat that these change anything, but they do change things further down in the flow. Then you're going to add your address or the customer's address. It's going to look through and it uses an the UPS, USPS address thing to make sure we're putting in clean addresses, and it will recommend one um, that is the best match based off what you put in. I put in something that wasn't even an address, so I got an odd recommendation. Then, is the address in a poverty area? This is not going to be an actual question in the application. We are building this into the back end to make that determination based on the address you input. Right now, this is just here for testing purposes. So if you want to test as somebody who would be technically in a high poverty area, you would answer yes. If not, you'd answer no. But we do have stuff in this sprint, after we get through the document upload, we got the back end of that built, and now we need to connect it to the address information in the application. Then do you have a phone? I have a card to fix this. I had entered in a phone number in the profile. So if a phone number is already record identified, we want these to be pre-populated with yes. You'll see it pulls the phone number in. Is this number able to receive text messages? This list will change based on how you answer these questions. So if I say yes, now I have text in my list. If I say no, I don't have a phone, then the email is the only option. So again, dynamic questions. Contacts, we can add additional contacts for the customer. Veteran information. So I said no before when I created a customer profile, so it's auto answered, asking me a couple additional questions. If you say yes, the question set's very different for vets, so will look different depending on how you answer all these. Then we have the private information. So a lot of these are coming in pre-populated. We're working on continuing to have these pre-populate based on pre-screening data. We should have things moving forward. Then we're looking at this question here is on ELL. So if you do have trouble with English in an area and that already been identified either through the basic skill screening tool or through an accommodation question where on the customer profile where we identified we need language support and identify these will pass through and be auto answered. But if we don't have that, we do double check any ELL needs. If there are areas, we move into the secondary question to make sure we're capturing the full definition of ELL. But if they don't have any issues with speaking English, then they don't get that secondary question because they have not met the first part of the definition. Then here's the social security number. If they do have a social security number, they put it in. You can just use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We don't have the business logic right now. It will come, but we don't have it right now. For testing purposes, you can use the same SSN across multiple apps right now. So that way we're not trying to come up and remember a bunch of SSNs. That will be limited here as we move further into the sprints to incorporate that business logic. I'll slow down on my pointer, try not to move it so quickly. We have the education page. So if you are a youth, we'd already answered this. If we are currently in school, so as an auto answered, and we're going to look at what kind of school they're currently in. For adults, somebody who's not moving through the youth path, they won't see all the same questions that a youth would see. We collect more of this education stuff in the getting started assessments for adult and dislocated worker. So the employment question looks a little different here than what you might see if you do tests as a traditional dislocated worker. So I didn't trigger the dislocated worker path on pre-screening, so none of these are preset. If I would have triggered that on pre-screening, these would have all come in preset. Um, it's essentially replicating the same pre-screening question flow to determine if I meet any of the dislocated worker tracks. Um, Once I meet it, it stops asking me questions and I can move further into these. Um, so we do have that set up. I'm going to actually say yes, yes. We also have, let me refresh this. We also have a question here to collect your employer. I'm not sure why it's not showing up, but it might be a bug that I didn't trigger it on pre-screening, so it's not knowing to show it here. I'll look into that. But if you do trigger dislocated worker, you are able to add your employment record. And I do want to show that. Let me see. Let me actually trigger that really quick over here. While I'm doing that, I'll talk through the rest of the pages. So on the family and household, we're pulling in information here about income. I'd answered some of these on the pre-screening, so they are pre-populating in this way based on how I had answered those questions, so they're already answered. Then it is looking to see if they've ever received TANF. If not, that will be the end of what we're looking at. If they do, then there's some additional questions to see how long they've got TANF to see if they're potentially eligible to, or they're slated to potentially exhaust TANF. As we get to this page, this will be the last of what we're testing today. But we will have more items that we're testing in future releases with this to make sure that we're getting those document uploads and signatures and everything. Do you guys have any questions while I'm working on pulling up an example of the dislocated worker employment dislocation record? Yes, it does sync to EBS. That's why I want to show you guys what that looks like. Let me see if I can find. I'm gonna find somebody I can open up their record. Give me just 1 second. This is not a dislocated worker. Let me. Does anybody else have any questions while I'm pulling this open? Okay. I did put in the personas. The EBS, so for the EBS and D&B search that we're using, we are tying it to the EBS test database. So people that are familiar with actual layoff events happening right now, please keep in mind that, hold on, let me change this, that those are not equal to what we're connecting to and what we're doing. So I put in employers that live in the EBS test database. So even if you're not using um, one of the personas, you're welcome to open that persona thing to grab a customer to just see what some of those test employer records might be to make it easier to find those that would be tied to an EBS ID. Does anybody else have any other questions? All right, hopefully we will be right there after one more page. Okay, so I'll make a bug card for this because I didn't trigger dislocated worker on pre-screening. For some reason, even when I triggered it here, it was not displaying this like it should whenever I triggered the track that would require a dislocation job. But so I've triggered this track of, I can't remember if this is this probably a substantial layoff. You're going to search for employers. So I don't even remember off of the top of my head what my good test employer name was. Global Test Equipment. So you can start typing in here your employer name. It's going to load, and you can add your up here. We make recommendations that you add a zip code to kind of narrow down that search because it is hitting both the D&B and the EBS database. So there's a lot of employers in here that we can pull data back from on. So right here is the global test equipment. I'm like, okay, that's my employer. When I connect that, it's going to pull in additional data that has been stored in EBS. So known layoff events for that. It's going to list all those. This one only has one. So I'll pick it and select OK. And then it's going to populate that employer name. You'll give it a job title. And then it's gonna pre-populate all the data it has on this event. So the address, the date notified, projected, actual. Then you can put in how much you earned. UI, it's gonna pull in the NAICS. And then we have some questions around declining. I do have a card. I want this job title to use the same occupation search. So we're not entering job title and occupation, but it would simply use that higher level, this search up there. And when you pick it, it's just going to pull down the occupation code down here for you to view in this flow. And then you would determine if it's low growth or not. We have some additional information we're putting into these questions for how to make that determination, and some links for how you can do that. Crystal, you said, so in current one? I'm not sure I understand the question.
Sorry, I hit the button accidentally. I was just going to ask, I think you were getting to that point, but in IWDS currently, declining industry is something that's auto-populated. Is this looks like it's a question the person is answering, or the career planners, or who are we doing right now?
Yeah, so this is a question that would only be career planner facing. These questions right here are only career planner facing.
The career planners right now don't have to, I mean, they don't, there's a way in IWDS currently that it auto-populates and it tells them. So is that going to do the same thing here, or are they going to be sent somewhere to determine that? I mean, they can, do it, they can overwrite, but I'm just curious.
Um,
I was
Kelly
wondering the same
L,
thing.
I'm gonna have you help answer this because I know we just talked about it. We can auto populate it. Um, but we
Okay.
talked about not having it auto populated.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
we could
didn't, I didn't,
cross-reference it, but is there like a tool, would it take us to the IDES, I mean, years and years ago, we used to cross-reference it using the IDES, projections. And if it was below, a certain percent, 1 point or 0.9 or 1.1, then it was considered low growth. And then declining industries, similar thing back when we were using SIC before NAICS code. So
Right.
we could look it up. It's just we didn't know if the system was going to carry forward, like Crystal was saying. I was wondering the same thing. Is the system just going to, um, you know, automatically say Y or N based on logic, that's programmed in the back end, to match
Right. Because I think
stuff.
that, yeah, because now
Do
it's just
Crystal,
automatic.
do they answer declining and low growth? Are both of those auto-populated in IWDS?
Oh,
I mean, when you're
you know
doing
what?
somebody's work history in the job record, it will. I'm not sure in other fields like the IT characteristic screens and stuff where you're putting in ONET and when you're selecting it, it doesn't. I don't believe so, but I think
Right.
it does
Yeah,
from
I
what
think
with the
they have
job
to
records.
mark. Yeah, I think they have to mark, if I'm remembering correctly, because it's a couple places. The declining industry usually pops up by itself, but the low growth, they can check it.
Okay.
They can check it yes or no, I think.
Yeah, I can see
So
right now.
I'll circle back because that is definitely something we can pre-populate. We were having questions about it this week. Doing exactly what you were saying, Rory. We can get that IDES data and have it in the back end updated every 2 years. And if it is zero or negative, know that it's auto answered a specific way. So we'll have those conversations and make sure that we're not taking away any existing functionality.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we can.
exactly. I just don't want staff to have to do something more than what they're doing now. If it's supposed to be making it easier for everybody, you know?
Definitely. So I'll get that. We had some conversations. Kelly, I'm gonna reconnect with you just to make sure we're both on the same, I'm understanding it correctly, and I can get that auto-populated, no problem. Low growth can be connected into the in-demand list. Yeah, that was another thing we were looking at. Does that use the DODL, or are those different things? So we'll recircle back to this, and look at getting those pre-populated.
Well,
But that is, go ahead.
I think you got to look in that more because from a local, regional, state plan, there is a difference with low growth compared to what demand occupations are. So I don't know that you can say just because they're a demand occupation, they're also low growth.
Yeah, that's the conversation we had
Yeah,
earlier this week. So why we
yeah,
left it as a question they have to answer. But we'll look back into that, because it's definitely a feasible feature we can do. We just need to know
yeah.
what
Yeah.
what's making
Mike
that
Baker or
determination.
somebody, right? Mike Baker or I don't know who's at NIU now that provides all that data for state plan, and then I think helps get it down to the local level for regional local plans would be able to identify how they figure that out because that's all in those plans. But yeah, I would, you can't tie it to the demand list. It's a totally different set of criteria, which maybe that's a larger discussion that needs to happen, but not at this time.
I also wanted to note that this question here, we are going to be hooking up to some IDES data, and like they won't be able, customers or users won't be able to select yes, recent referral. This will be something that's auto-populated. There are some third-party data things we're still working through to kind of hook up and auto-populate some of this. So just a note to testers that this question will be updated as well. Any other questions? I'm gonna check the chat.
Rory put a screenshot in there that it does auto-populate both.
Perfect. I'll connect with Kelly, Mark, and Mike, and we'll get that figured out. Make sure we can get that from the appropriate folks. I don't see any other questions. I'm just scrolling through the chat to make sure I didn't miss anything. All right, I don't see any
one.
old questions.
I had one quick, just it's more of a design question. If there's time, I know we're at time, but and this won't take long. It's probably just a yes or no question. But I think I typed it in earlier, but it was way earlier, so I might have missed it. It was and when you were going through trying to uh find a oh sorry, I think I'm having audio problems.
No, I can hear you.
Okay. Um my camera mic's going in and out. When you were going through looking for um a customer to test to show us the um how it searches for the employer name for like dislocation events potentially. I also noticed it with the when you were going through those, kind of going through really quick the pre-screening, the questionnaire. There's the questions about like I can fill out a job application in English. I think was one of them. There's that series of questions where it's like yes, I would need help, or no, those three options. And similar to the yes and no options here, it reminded me, I was thinking of that back when we were testing the pre-screening a while back. The contrast, depending on the screen and the device that someone's using, a laptop, it's the resolution of the screen. Like here when you're doing yes and no, like if you look carefully, I mean, I can kind of tell it's a blue for yes. Although I'm colorblind, so don't go by me, but I think it's blue, it could be purple. But the contrast, and that something that might be added, layers that would be added to the way the screens are coded, later on, are they going to add that element graphically? Because the same in those pre-screening questions too, where there's those three options, one's like, I think it's like, yes, I can do this on my own. I might need help. And then no, I can't do this. Or sometimes like this, whatever the choice that's been made, it's what I guess I'm sorry, I don't know if it's making sense, but like any shading that could be done to highlight or different font color or more bold, just more of a contrast so that it's easier to see what selection has been made for that question. So you don't have to look too carefully or look too closely. So it's a little more obvious. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm not to nitpick or anything. It was just one of those things that I would imagine might be added later, or if there was a plan to add that later. But does that make any sense? You know what I'm trying to say?
Are you
Yeah, we're
talking
going to
about?
run this through accessibility and we'll make sure that the color differences meet the standards for appropriate like visibility and vision so we can make it more clear. So if this lighter blue needs to be a brighter to make it clear that this is selected, we can do that. Go ahead, Al. You were going to say something.
I was going to ask if he's talking about that, what you had on the screen. Um, One of the problems we have here is we're trying to indicate that those are coming from a pre-step. So that's why.
I think he just means the in general, this light blue isn't bright enough to know that yes is
Yeah.
selected.
And on the pre-screen
Exactly.
questionnaire, it was the
Exactly.
same thing. So just once or even as you're making a selection, sometimes it was harder to hear a little bit or harder to see. I'm sorry. Um, but yeah, fine, color. But yeah, I know the WCAG, the guidelines, the accessibility, you probably have to run it through that. Because if you make it too dark for shading, then it's like, wow, okay, it's real, or you highlight a color. It's obvious to us then what was picked, but then somebody visually impaired may not be able to see that. So yeah, I guess it would have to go through that. But that was just the only thing from a design standpoint that I had kind of noticed that.
Yeah, and that's definitely something we have that flag from previous UAT is like a larger usability and color across all of our pages. And we'll do that. We did it with GMS and we're going to continue to move through and doing it with our IWDS 2.0 pages as well.
Great, thank you. That was all. Sorry.
Anything else from anybody?
Olivia, is real quick question. Is your page right now, is it on the default browser size? Or did you scrunch it down so you could get it in here?
No, I'm on the default browser size.
Okay. So it's probably just realize that too. When you get into it, it'll be a lot bigger than it is when it comes to this Zoom. Just want everybody to know that. That's another thing. It might be, you might think it's small, but it's probably not that small when you get it out of the Zoom window.
Oh, good point.
Any other questions? All right. Well, Kelly will get an email sent out. We're going to be doing this again tomorrow morning. So if you have other staff you would like to sit in on this so they can participate, definitely forward them the invite for tomorrow. And all the stuff will be posted on the webpage, and we'll get an email sent out to make sure you guys have all the resources you need to conduct UAT. Thanks all.